At my son's baptism, my mother handed the priest an envelope and said it was a donation from my son's college fund. I smiled and said, "You mean the fund that's been in my lawyer's name since Tuesday?" The color drained from her face so fast. The priest asked if she needed water. My son Luca was being held over the baptismal font when my mother walked up to the altar with an envelope. She handed it to Father Brennan with both hands like she was presenting an award. "This is a $40,000 donation to the church from Luca's college fund. I think starting his life with generosity is more important than starting it with greed." She turned to face the pews. 60 people, my husband's entire family, my coworker, my best friend who flew in from Denver. My mother had timed it perfectly, the most sacred moment of my son's life, and she turned it into a performance. My sister Renata was sitting in the third row nodding like she'd rehearsed this reaction in a mirror. I didn't flinch. I looked at Father Brennan and said calmly, "That check is going to bounce." Mom's chin dropped half an inch. "The fund has been in my lawyer's name since Tuesday. There's nothing attached to your name, your account, or your signature." Father Brennan looked at the envelope, then at my mother, then quietly set it on the altar like it might bite him. Mom grabbed my arm. Not gently. "What did you do?" "What I should have done when Luca was born. I removed you." Here's what no one in that church knew. When Luca was 4 months old, I found out my mother had been writing checks from his college fund. Small ones at first. $200 here, $500 there, all made out to Renata. When I confronted Mom, she told me Renata needed help with rent, and that I was being dramatic. Renata's rent was $1,100 a month. The checks totaled $14,000 in 5 months. Renata doesn't pay rent. She owns her condo outright. Mom bought it for her, so I hired a lawyer. Quietly, I moved the funds into a protected trust, removed my mother as custodian, and waited. I knew she'd do something public. She always does. Everything is a stage, and she's always the lead. Back in the church, Renata stood up. "You are ruining this day." Mom handed a fake check to a priest during my son's baptism, and I'm the one ruining it. It wasn't fake. She was going to transfer the money Monday from an account she no longer has access to. "That makes it fake, Renata." My mother straightened her jacket. "That thing she does when she's switching from ambush mode to victim mode. I gave up everything for you girls. I sacrificed my career, my marriage, my happiness, and this is how you treat me. You gave up everything for Renata. I got hand-me-downs and guilt trips. Renata got a condo, a car, and apparently $14,000 from my infant son's college fund." The pews were silent. My father-in-law was gripping the armrest so hard his knuckles were white. My husband hadn't moved. He was standing near the font holding Luca against his chest with one hand over our son's ear like he could shield him from all of it. Mom lowered her voice. "The dangerous voice. The one I grew up being afraid of. If you do this, you will lose your family." "I'm looking at my family right now," I said, and I looked at my husband and my son. "You're talking about your audience." Renata grabbed Mom's arm. "Let's go. She's not worth it." Mom let herself be pulled toward the aisle but stopped at the end of our pew. She leaned in close enough that only I could hear. "You think you're strong? You're just cruel." "No, Mom. Cruelty is stealing from a baby and calling it generosity." She walked out. Renata followed. The heavy church doors closed behind them, and the sound echoed off the stone walls. Father Brennan cleared his throat. "Shall we continue?" My husband stepped forward with Luca, who had fallen asleep through the entire thing. Tiny fist curled around my husband's collar. I touched my son's head and nodded. Yes, we were in the middle of something that actually matters.